how are these discussions unfolding? How are you building containers, and
Yep.
what could people expect if they want to join Intimacy by Design?
Yeah, beautiful. So in a first conversation that we had together, Cadell, I remember you speaking about how, like, I brought up the term container.
Yeah.
And when it seemed that when I said container, what you were actually saying is that the containers in like academia seem to be limited.
Let me just, I'll try and give a very quick condensed situation of how, you could situate container as something different than what I would see in the literature.
Please,
It would be,
please.
so it would be oftentimes in academia, and you might see this in activist disciplines a lot, like for example, like a post-colonial studies or a feminist studies or something like this. They would be against the system. They would position the subject against the system. So the subject would be Cadell and Ariel, and the system would be the structure that would be containing our identities or holding our identities or fixing rules for our identities. And that would be what you were talking about with the fixed identity. Like you called it like the prison of the identity or something like this.
Yeah.
So in the studies or in the literature, it would be post-structuralist studies, and they would be trying to find the location of the free subject.
Mm.
And then now you're talking about containers, so that's where I would be interested in how your concept of the container is something different,
Yeah. Beautiful. So when you were describing that, I was like, oh, that actually feels like suppression. It feels like wanting to contain or control the identity. And with a container is something that is emergent. It is malleable. It is alive.
Mm-hmm.
It is 100% influenceable both by the person who is in command, like holding the container. So as the person facilitating this interactive emergent course, I am holding the container. The container is made up of the energies of, the desires of, the areas for growth of, and the boundaries of each person who comes into the course. Mm-hmm. Which means that it's not fixed. And I have a strong ability to feel into what a person's experience is, and know how to shift and adapt the container so that regardless of what wants to emerge within them, they can feel and deeply know that the container is big enough and adaptable enough to hold them. Because the number one thing that we are working with right now in society, especially in American culture, is the suppression of self and the deep shame that has been carried around our sexuality, which is essentially our essence. So many people are walking around fearing that their emotions will be too much, that their experience is wrong, that it's not okay to be who they are. So in my opinion, the most skillful and powerful container is one that can constantly hold and approve of a person's experience without allowing them to bypass. So it means it's also showing a clear mirror and holding a person accountable in the places where they're playing small. So that patterning that is working counter to what they say that they want can be seen, felt, and reflected. And that regardless of how big the person allows themselves to be, that they don't feel themselves hitting up against the ceiling, which in that case means hitting up against my potential egoic fear that they could be more powerful, more alive, more vibrant than me, which means that the holder of a container must be doing their work around humility, around vulnerability, around letting go of any need to control or be put on a pedestal, because any of that will reflect as shadow into the experience that can contaminate the container.
Well, what you're articulating quite well. You're doing a good job articulating is maybe the biggest possible project ever. So Intimacy by Design sounds like a pretty interesting place to be, but also for a lot of